information and working in a collaborative way that largely speaks to practicality. I signed on for Transportation for America because I believe in practicality. We make smart incremental steps by working together to find common ground around reasonableness. And I think if you look at the platform that Transportation for America presents, you'll find it fraught with reasonableness. And I think that's its power. John Robert Smith served many years as mayor of Meridian, Mississippi, and as a mayor, he sensed the many challenges that come with trying to create transportation systems in jurisdictions like ours and elsewhere, and how those systems connect and how those precious resources get applied. And from that experience, and I think a real commitment to serve a broader constituency of folks, again, in a practical way, he found himself with a choice between running for mayor again and being trapped in a grocery store for 45 minutes when he was purchasing a bottle of Maalox, is the most common purchase for mayors, is my understanding, or leaving that service to serve again in a different capacity, but again, all about taking care of the public. So it's really a pleasure to have Mayor Smith here. He brings to Missoula a great sense of what's happening on the national level, but also a respect for what we're doing here locally, and the knowledge that what we do in Missoula matters in Washington, D.C. So without further ado, Mayor Smith, pleasure to have you, sir.
Mayor Engen, thank you for that very kind introduction. And we were sharing stories about being in local elected office, and it's both the best job you'll ever have in the world, and at times it's the worst job you'll ever have in the world. I shared with the mayor a story. I'm a Presbyterian. I was visiting the Episcopal Church, and I was taking communion down front, and between the bread and the wine, the gentleman next to me elbowed me and said, "Check out the curb cuts on Papa Stringer's Fire." And I said, "If you'll give me and the Lord just a few minutes here, we can talk about your curb cuts." But that's the way you wonderful public are in dealing with at the mayor's office. I want a door-to-door campaign. I'll knock on 14,000 doors. We're a city of 40,000 in Mississippi, and I'll knock on every door when I run for office. And of course, people will tell you anything at the front door. And all of our council meetings are on television, so they think they know you when you walk to that door, and they'll say things like, "Oh, you look just like yourself." And then they said this to me, they perhaps said the same thing to you, Mayor. I knocked on one door, and the lady came to the front door and said, "I thought you'd be bigger." But no, this is what you get. I'm John Robert Smith. I'm a pharmacist by profession, although I haven't practiced in a number of years. I served 4 years on the Meridian City Council, and then was elected mayor and served 16 years as the mayor of my hometown of Meridian. I also served as chairman of the board of Amtrak for a while, and served on handled rail issues for the U.S. Conference of Mayors and for the National League of Cities when I was engaged with them. I didn't intend to get engaged in transportation to the depth that I have been. You tend to get sucked into voids, and the void I found was about first passenger rail in rural states and small town America. And I grew up in Meridian. I've lived in the same home my entire life in Meridian, the home my grandfather built in the 1880s in the downtown. My grandson Ethan, who is 4 and a half, is the 5th generation of our family to grow up in the same house in downtown Meridian, so very deep roots there. It was very hard for me to leave that which I knew all of my life in Meridian to move to Washington, D.C. a year ago, but I did. And I did so because I truly believe that the decisions, or in this case, the lack of decisions, being made in Washington right now about transportation for the future of this country is going to spell the difference between Ethan being able to find a meaningful, productive life in his hometown of Meridian, Mississippi, or having to relocate somewhere else to find that meaningful life. And as a parent and a grandparent, I want to see our children be able to find that wonderful, challenging life right in their own backyard. And so I did leave Meridian, and I moved to Washington to become president of Reconnecting America. Reconnecting America is a national not-for-profit that is, the sole effort is to lead the conversation in how we build our neighborhoods, our cities, and our regions, and the economic potential of that building all around how we connect our modes of transportation and how we move our goods and people about this country and about our city. We have the Center for Transit-Oriented Development, which studies in detail that development around transit centers or transit hubs, be they bus stations or light rail or high-speed rail stations. As the president of Reconnecting America, I'm also co-chairman of Transportation for America. Now, T for America is a broad coalition, national coalition of over 500 partners. You can see some of those involved there. AARP, the National Association of Realtors, of the healthcare industry is heavily represented. Also, the environmental interests are there, as well as the transportation interests you might expect. And the mayor is a member, and other mayors across the country and cities are. As you can see, it's a very diverse coalition, but we want to speak with one voice, and that is that the next transportation authorization bill passed by Congress, which they will eventually pass, is one that is transformational. We have not had a transportation vision in this country since Eisenhower rolled out the interstate highway system. President Obama, and I'm a Republican, I was a Republican mayor for 16 years. President Obama, though, is the first president in my lifetime that's spoken in the State of the Union about transportation as an issue for the country, and that rail ought to be a viable choice for transportation in this country, as well as other choices. So we want to see that we do begin to make those choices in a more reasonable way, and that in the 21st century, our transportation needs to be smarter and safer and cleaner and provide mobility options. And our whole purpose is about choice. It's not about telling you what your transportation option ought to be, but it's about giving you a choice. And sometimes the choice is the highway or the interchange, but it's not always the right choice. Sometimes the better choice is passenger rail or intercity bus or city transit or the bike or something we've forgotten to use in the South, and that's these 2 feet. We've forgotten why the Lord gave them to us. You know, He wants us to use them to walk and to bike every once in a while to improve our physical condition and quality of life, because we battle obesity in the South, and childhood obesity is a real problem in the South. I put the people of Meridian Mayor on a diet. USA Today did 2 stories. The first one proved that Americans are the fattest people in the world per capita. The next week's story came out and ranked the states, and Mississippi was the #1 state for having the worst problem of obesity, so I figured that made Mississippians the fattest folks on the planet. So I put us on a diet and challenged us to lose weight, and Mayor, we lost about 9,000 pounds. We had 1,000 people sign up to lose 10 pounds, and it really began to transform how they spent their everyday life in a healthy way.
I found them there, that's the problem.
Well, and Oprah Winfrey came to Meridian to kick off her national effort on weight loss. People in Meridian did better than Oprah did. Federal policy is beginning to change. We see that HUD and DOT and EPA are now talking together about how they develop their policy and how that policy can better use public dollars and can bring a better quality of life to our people. Now, the mayor will tell you every one of his department heads have to talk and plan together. He can't plan a street change without talking to the police department or the fire department. We do that every day. But in Washington, this is the first time the federal government departments have talked to each other and planned with each other and reviewed policy with each other. $140 million in planning grants in 2010. There should be more in 2011. And we've applauded the efforts and the changes that are made there. Just very quickly on Capitol Hill, the last authorization bill for transportation expired a year ago, and we've been living on extensions for 3 months, 6 months, but you can't plan for the future on extensions. You've got to have a 6-year authorization bill in order to plan and bid out and fund projects, whether they're highway projects or rail projects or transit projects. So Chairman Oberstar has introduced his authorization bill, $500 billion price tag to it. It's a good basic bill. There are things that T4 thinks could do better in that bill. Doesn't include how you pay for it. The Senate is, as we speak, developing language for a Senate authorization of transportation. And Senator Max Baucus is going to have hand-in-hand drafting a lot of that transportation authorization bill. And that's why Montana is so important. And your Senator Tester has supported the city livability bill in committee, and that's important. Montana really sits in a catbird seat on this next transportation authorization. And the reason I'm out here is because I'm trying to see that rural America, rural states, small cities are heard. And I can't speak authentically or honestly about it unless I've been to states like Maine and Montana to see, touch, feel, ride, and understand the issues as they face you. And I am finding that people in Montana and Mississippi and Maine and Tennessee and Louisiana are facing the same basic issues. And I'll address some misunderstandings in Washington in just a moment. We need a small-town rural bill focus. Now, the reason we need that is because when I got to Washington, I found certain things, misunderstandings. First of all, in Washington, D.C., inside the Beltway, they don't know what a rural state is. They think we all live on a ranch or a farm somewhere, and there are no cities. They will tell you in Washington that anything up to 500,000 people is rural. Well, now, nobody in Mississippi, and I don't think many folks in Montana think 500,000 people is rural. They don't know what it takes to make a city a city. They think it's got to be a certain population number, more than 500,000 people will be a city. They also think that when they talk about solving transportation problems, it's all about congestion and metropolitan areas. Well, the truth of the matter is, for folks like us, rural states are no longer inhabited solely by people who live on farms and ranches. They are not inhabited by people who don't need the services found in cities. You no longer live totally independent lives that are totally self-sufficient. You are interdependent. A city is the regional economic development leader. Whether that city is 10,000 in Hatter, Montana, or whether it's 40,000 in Meridian, Mississippi, or whether it's several million in New York. It's not a population, it's the service that the city performs for the region that surrounds it. And the third issue is that in rural America, transportation problems are not about congestion, they're about access. Access to jobs, access to health care, access to opportunity and education for our children and our grandchildren. So those issues have to be addressed with a rural focus in the next bill. This is a map we had prepared, basically of the infrastructure of the United States. You see the highways in black. You see the existing Amtrak lines in green, proposed Amtrak lines in yellow, and high-speed rail corridors in red, and if you could see them, the little airports or little white planes up there, but there's a great void in the northwestern part of the United States. I don't think that's what you want. It does not make you connected to the rest of the whole, and Montana and Mississippi are part of the contiguous United States. We are a part of a system. That's why they built the interstate highway system through Mississippi and Montana, because they recognize we're part of a greater system. Well, you're also part of a greater system for passenger rail, I would argue, and for intercity bus and for transit. Montana has good bones. You have good highway infrastructure that connects you. You do have good freight rail infrastructure, and the right-of-way is still there. You have the Empire Builder across the northern tier, but you don't have it across the south, and I do believe there is a reasonable opportunity, if you have the will, to get that passenger rail back into Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, and the Dakotas, and you have friends in the South that need the same thing. But look at your cities, what I call micropolitan areas. Not as big as metropolitan, but just as important to the region. Here are 8 cities. The red one is Salt Lake City. The other are all Montana cities. Now, there are those, and there are even folks, there are even leaders in Montana that will tell you you don't have urban issues. The density of these 7 cities, and look at the grid pattern of the streets, 41% of Montanans live in these 7 cities. When you add the county areas that are immediately adjacent, I don't know your catchment area, but just immediately adjacent to these cities, you get upwards of 70% of the population of Montana living in or around those 7 cities. And the density of those cities is equal to the density of Indianapolis, Cincinnati, or Richmond, Virginia. Because density is population per square mile, not total population. So you don't have to be a big city by population to be a denser city by population per square mile. And you know what? You have transit when you have density like that. I want to talk to you about my hometown, Meridian, Mississippi, and a project there that was how I got involved in all of this. It's our Union Station Multimodal Transportation Center. It was the first multimodal transportation center, bringing all modes of transportation together. First one in the South, one of the first in the country, especially for a city of our size. Meridian is a city of 40,000 people located on the Mississippi-Alabama border. We are the retail, medical, educational, employment, entertainment trade draw for 350,000 people in 11 rural counties in Mississippi and Alabama. If Meridian disappeared tonight, 350,000 people would have to build it tomorrow because we sustain their lives and their everyday needs. We're serviced by 2 interstate highways, by the longest one way in 2 states. We have air service to Atlanta. In Meridian, when you die, you go to Atlanta first. We are serviced by 2 freight rails, Norfolk Southern and Kansas City Southern. We are on Amtrak's Crescent Line, which I like to believe originates in Meridian and travels north to New York, and Meridian originates in Meridian and travels south to New Orleans. So we are connected by transportation. When you're talking about your hometown, there are 3 points of identity that are absolutely key to you. And I can't know this. You have to know it about yourselves. First, you've got to know who you were in the past. Why is there a Missoula? Well, I can tell you why there is a Meridian. 2 railroads crossed there. They needed a city to grow up in 1850. We were incorporated in 1860. We grew as a railhead in the southeast and were dynamic. And that dynamic railroad brought General Williams, Tecumseh Sherman, and 10,000 of his friends to visit my hometown. And the general brought his own particular brand of urban renewal. Burned every structure at Meridian to ground, pulled up all the railroads. But the people of Meridian rebuilt the railroad infrastructure over there that would be the reason they would return. Sherman wired Lincoln and said Meridian no longer exists. Well, we've had the last laugh on the general. We rebuilt, and we were rebuilt by German Jewish immigrants that moved into Meridian that recognized the transportation infrastructure was good for commerce and for their families. So that's who we were. In 1989, we had lost our retail dominance. Downtown was a ghost town. Our children graduating from high school told me, as soon as we graduate, we're getting as far away from Meridian as we can. We had lost our sense of who we were, and we could not tell you who we wanted to be. Oh, we wanted to be Hattiesburg or Tupelo or Biloxi. Well, you can't be who you're not. You have to be authentic to who you are. So the most important question up there is, who do you aspire to be? Who do you tell your children and grandchildren you will be when they're your age as a community? Only you can answer that. This is, you're seeing the, have I not been advancing? Has this picture been stable the whole time? Okay. When we get this corrected, hopefully, you'll see the station as it was in the early 1900s, and then you'll see the...
Missoulians against PowerPoint strikes again.
Yeah. Okay, y'all figure it out, just tell me what to do. So for us, we were returning to our roots. We were returning to what made Meridian, that was transportation. I told you what all we had lost. And so I wanted to breathe life back into the heart of the downtown, because if you lose your downtown, that rot creeps into the rest of your community. And it's mighty, mighty hard to turn around. Detroit is a living example of that today. And there's some debate as to whether it enters revived or not. But so I chose to invest in a transportation center. And I felt, well, the people using transportation, if I can get them all clustered together in one part of Meridian, then I can breathe that life back into the downtown. And so we built our Union Station Transportation Center in the downtown. The city put little over $1 million, and that million leveraged $5 million in additional state and federal monies. It was IC money, Intermodal Surface Transportation Efficiency Act money at the time. I was, as you can imagine, I asked for $1 million from the people to build a multimodal what? So I'm out I'm speaking to groups like this all over Meridian, and I'm talking about, please believe, please have confidence, please let me have this $1 million to match the IC money, because I have raised $5 million in IC money, and that IC money is going to bring new life and vigor with it. And so at the speaking one night at the end, I was standing up front, and an elderly man came up front to me and he said, Mayor, you've raised $5 million from your IC money. And I said, yes, sir, I have. He said, this is going to bring vitality and vigor. And I said, yes, sir, it will. And he said, well, son, I don't know what you've been putting in that IC. You've been saying, if you got $5 million for it, I won't be glad. So we raised that additional money, and with that, Union Station became the most heavily used public space in Meridian. We have over 300,000 passengers a year using Union Station. We're a city of 40,000. That's huge for us. Over 250 events are held at Union Station every year. Everything from weddings, anniversaries, class reunions, to business meetings such as this are held there. It has become the center of activity in downtown Meridian. Now, what we didn't expect was the economic development spin-off. Remember, we put $1.3 million in it, leveraged another $5 million. Well, that total $6 million is leveraged an additional $135 million of public-private sector investment within 3 blocks of that facility. It is everything from condominiums selling for $250,000, $500,000 a piece. This is in downtown Meridian, a city of 40,000. It's market rate apartments. It's affordable homes and apartments there. It's in retail and commercial development. We could not possibly imagine the impact that we would have with that development, but we did. And that $135 million showed property values quadrupled. Sales tax generated went up 62%. We've kept property tax basically flat for 16 years and still did more than we've ever done. One thing that I hate you'll miss seeing is this project led to the restoration of our Grand Opera House in Mississippi, which is in downtown Meridian. That opera house was built in 1889, designed by the same firm that designed the original Metropolitan Grand Opera House in New York. So we restored it to its original condition, paint finishes, fabrics, wall coverings. It is breathtaking. And now you can go see a performance of Wynton Marsalis and the Kennedy Center Orchestra. You can hear Al Holbrook perform Mark Twain Delight. You can hear the Soweto Gospel Choir there. The Queen's Own Saddle Yards came from London with that orchestra to perform Gilbert and Sullivan's Mikado, which could have been performed there when the Opera House originally opened in the 1890s or so. So maybe you'll get to see it, but imagine what that does to a downtown when suddenly there's world-class entertainment in the downtown and people are living downtown. I was the only one living downtown. Now there are other people. I'm serious. Now there are other people living downtown. Young people are coming downtown. And what has changed is at graduation. Later, I went to my son's graduation, and I was on the dais and shook hands with every young person graduating. Well, I had to go every year after that. So I had 16 years of high school graduation. And as wonderful as they are, I can't tell you I actually miss sitting on the dais for every graduation. But I heard the change from the students graduating from Meridian High. I heard them evolve into students who were saying, I can't wait to get a college degree and get back to Meridian and see what has changed or what is happening in my hometown. I was on a flight in with a whole plane full of county students who don't even live in Meridian, and they look out the window and say, look, there are the lights of Meridian. Isn't it good to be home? You see, they recognize Meridian as their home place. The last thing I would show you is our housing, our Hope 6. We were the last Hope 6 project in the United States. We demolished those warehouses for humanity where we built projects to store people that none of us would want to live in. We demolished that and we returned neighborhoods. We returned homes, duplexes, triplexes, individual homes there. And if you could see the pictures, the homes look like the older wooden frame homes in that historic district. And they have sidewalks, and they have street lighting and landscaping, and they're walkable and bikeable, probably the most walkable, bikeable neighborhood in Meridian, connected by transit into the hospitals for elderly, get to the doctor, out to the community college to get your educational degrees. The people there are more connected than perhaps any other citizens in Meridian. And what it's done to change the way they view themselves. People who live in public housing, at least where I'm from, will say, well, I stay in such and such a place. If you walk down the street now and you talk to people in the homes, they'll say, oh, I live in such and such a place. The difference between staying and living is ownership. It's ownership in that neighborhood. It's ownership in the community. It's ownership in the future of that city, and it changes them as a citizen. Crime's virtually wiped out in that part of the region. And if you walk down the street for a gum wrapper, Ms. McGinnis will come off of her porch with a broom after you. So there's a pride in the neighborhood and in the city. It's been a win for us at every level. The city level, revenues up, property values are up, property tax coming in therefore is up. It's a win to the residents who now have a more vital community to live in. They actually get around and be connected to that community and connected to the larger region. We dramatically increased the ridership on the Amtrak Crescent, coming to and out of Marie and Fort Card and Market. The region wins because it's a much more dynamic region. So there are wins at every level. It wasn't easy. It was hard. You learn to break off arrows in your back and just keep on going, but it transforms your community. So that's kind of the story of what we've done, and there are lessons that I can learn from you, and I've picked up a few of what I've seen in your wonderful downtown. I want to salute you for the attention you pay to the downtown. You have a very vibrant downtown with looks like a fun place to be tonight before the game and then tomorrow after the game, perhaps. So I applaud you for that. There are things I want to see other cities being able to do the things you do, and I want you to be able to do more of them easier. Because I don't want you to have to fight those in decision-making authority to get the things done you want done. And part of what we want is more decision-making at the local level, at the city level, the county level, the NPO and the RPO level. Decisions there that are closest to the people. Because although we laugh and joke about being mayors and being so close to our constituents, we respond better because we're closer to you. We're not insulated in the Beltway somewhere or at the Capitol somewhere. We're right here as you see every day. And I would like to think that with your input, we can make the best decisions. We want to see that decision making down at that level, and we want to see a full array of choices for you. And as you think about where you build schools and neighborhoods, children being able to walk to school, that's important, and do so safely. You being able to use your own streets. You know, streets are not just for cars. They do handle cars, but they're for people to be able to walk across those streets. Sometimes folks forget that people actually walk across the street. Now, it gets to include bikes. I love what you've done with the bike lane into the downtown. Cities are at different points on this learning curve, but I think we're getting there, and I think it's coming from mayors and council members. And I'll be happy to take your questions. It's been my great pleasure to come to Montana and to learn from you. I checked, it was 96 degrees in Washington, D.C. I am honest when I tell you I am glad to be here in Montana and to breathe the cool mountain air. It's even hotter back in Mississippi. But I will be leaving here tomorrow, going to Denver. And then I'm going to be coming back to Montana because I didn't get the whitefish and the northern part of your state. I want to see that. You have senators who need to hear from you about what is important to you so that they can accurately reflect that in the law that they will pass for all of us. And Max Baucus is going to be important to the people of Mississippi because the decisions he makes are going to impact what we do in our state as well. So that's kind of why I've been around. Is that now working? Let me flip. I'm not going to take you through it. I just want to take you down to show you just a couple of things I'm proud of. You got to see them. There's the station as it was and now as it is. I described some of this to you. You're seeing pictures of the inside. You see this deck on the back? We opened that station December the 11th. Mayor, nothing will get you motivated, you and your department, to get a certificate of occupancy issued for a building more than your fiance saying we're getting married there December the 12th. So we opened it December the 11th. I was married on that deck December the 12th, and took the Crescent. Norfolk Southern held all the freight traffic during the wedding for us, and then they brought in the Crescent. We got on the back of the Crescent. They had sent the private car down, and we're standing on the platform, and we're leaving Union Station, waving to the crowd. You know, Mayor, you can't send out an invitation to a wedding, because if I send you one, you want to know what does the mayor want. If I don't send you one, you're insulted. So I just put it in the paper, come join us. And we had about 300 or 400 people show up, and we were riding that train, my wife and I standing on the platform waving at the crowd, and I turned to my wife and I said, Frank Capra would kill for this film. And this is the Terminal Hotel across from the station in Meridian that was redone after we opened it, and the rather unfortunately named Terminal Cafe in the corner of that building. Retail developed and commercial really redid theirs. This is the building with the condominiums I was talking about. A wonderful facility. That 15-story building will be an upscale hotel to support the conference center for Mississippi State University. There it is. It's built in a 4-story department store, Marks Rothenberg department store. We then went on to build the Opera House, and you're going to see the interior of the Opera House. There she goes. Double horseshoe balcony. I mean, just an exquisite, breathtaking facility in the downtown. And again, the people who built that, they could tell you. When that was new, they could tell you who they were and who they were going to be. And they were going to be anchoring a special place in the Southeast. I want to believe that the restoration of that building says the same thing about the people of Meridian now. You'll see the neighborhood and the Hope Six, and that's really about all you need to see of this. So I'll be happy to answer questions. I do have, I don't know if we can get it up there, about the T4. If I could get this slide up there, go to T4America.org. Visit our website, check us out. You'll find our rural piece there. As I said, Senator Tester voted for the Livability Act. It is important to cities our size. Let your senators and congressmen know how you feel.
Thanks, Mayor Smith. Mayor Smith did mention that the way he had to, he kept the freight trains out from disrupting his wedding, he had to threaten to arrest the engineer.
Do you know you have the power to do that? If a freight train blocks your crossing more than, 30, 40 minutes, something like that, you can arrest the conductor, who is the one who actually controls the train. And Norfolk Southern wouldn't keep my crossing open, so I told the police chief, go arrest the conductor. He said, well, I said, go arrest the conductor. So we arrested him about 4 days in a row, and they finally started moving that train.
Parking commission booted my car, Mayor. I have a
Mr. Mayor, I know you were in Billings and Helena, now you're in Missoula. You got an opportunity to ride some of the buses in Montana. Tell us about, what do you think? Where should we go in our state? Not just Missoula, but also talk about the state as a whole.
Okay. Your cities are doing some wonderful things within the city and can do more, and I certainly applaud that. You've got to be connected, though, one city to the other. And if I'm a guest coming here and I want to enjoy this magnificent landscape that the Lord provided for you, and you want me to come, and you want me to bring my family here and spend money following here, then I've got to be connected from one place to another, and it can be problematic for our guests here. I did ride your intercity bus service, and certainly you're thankful for that which you have. It needs to be more robust. And part of our platform is you have essential service air markets. Most of your airports are essential service where we invest federally to support those airports. I would argue we ought to have essential service intercity bus. So it's okay to invest in the private sector to run routes that can be more frequent and upgrade equipment and make more sense for you. Passenger rail load could be an important part of that. I think you would be shocked at the ridership you could achieve on a well-developed passenger route through the southern part of this state and Wyoming and Idaho and the Dakotas. You have a population that is aging, and you will have a much greater retirement age, over 65 population in 15 years than we have now. If you are moving at a more rapid rate than most of the other states in the country, Mississippi is too, and you're losing young people that are moving out of your state, and they're moving out of Mississippi too. So we need to watch those two trends. But the aging population is going to need a way to move around and be connected. We are living longer. We are healthier in our retirement years, but we still want to go visit the grandchildren, and we want to go out and see things and do things. We have to be connected by transportation to do that, and I think passenger rail can be a part of that as well as intercity bus and then transit within, because what Secretary LaHood will tell you, if he was standing there behind me, he would say, if I gave you a train tonight and I step off the platform in the morning, how am I connected to the rest of your community? And that's what you've got to solve locally. How are you connected once you get off that train to the rest of the community? It doesn't do you any good if you step off the train and then you've got to drag your bag, 10 blocks somewhere. So those are local issues that have to be resolved. But I find a good spirit here and a willingness to tackle those problems. And don't let anyone tell you Montana's too big for a passenger rail or any other kind of transit. Don't let them tell you the United States is too spread out. China is the largest country in this world, and they're investing $120 billion this year alone in high-speed rail. $500 billion over the next 10 to 15 years. And you can't get much bigger. And they have built a high-speed rail line from Beijing to Lhasa, Tibet, through the Himalayas, in the permafrost, so high, the train is higher than the airplane. And literally, and oxygen comes out of the ceiling so you can breathe on that train while you're going to bed. If you have the will to do it, you can do it. And we are just as imaginative and innovative as any other population on earth once we finally decide to act. So don't let them tell you you can't have it, but you can. Yes, sir.
Since you served on the Amtrak board, it's been common knowledge in Washington for a long time that the long-distance passenger trains are black holes economically and the Northeast Corridor is unlimited. Can you comment on, is that correct perception?
That may be the perception is not correct. As a board member, a solo, a high-speed train does not pay for itself. No passenger rail service in the world pays for itself. The bullet trains in Japan do not pay for themselves out of fare lines. There was an investment at the national government level to build all of it. The highway system doesn't pay for itself, folks. The gas tax does not pay for the highway system. It pays for about 47% of the highway system. And the gas tax is diminishing. That's not going to be the solution, even just for highways for the future. So transportation is an investment for the long range and for the future. Transportation supports the economic development when it returns, and it will return in this country. But we're falling further and further behind the Europeans and the Asians who are way ahead of us in investing in transportation. And they're doing it with dollars we borrow from them so that we can buy oil from people who do not like us. And I remember, and you remember too, when the Shah fell And you couldn't buy gas after 5 o'clock or at any price because the pumps were empty. Well, there can be another cessation of gas into this country. And states like Mississippi and Montana are really cut off then because we live solely on automobiles. Automobiles are great, but they don't need to be all you've got, time of choice. Or every day, for that matter.
I noticed that your organization is in favor of rural transportation planning organizations. What about regional that incorporates rural and
Where there is an MPO, we're in favor of the MPO. But there are areas that can't muster enough people to have the MPO. So an RPO allows them to have an informed voice. And the key is an informed voice. If you want your really small town mayor or council or county commissioner to have an informed voice when they sit at the table. You don't do them a favor if you got them a place at the table and then leave them just to their own understanding. So we want to see RPOs and MPOs, for that matter, have the professional input of when places don't have planners like you have on the staff. Then we would like to see that kind of information furnished so that they can have an informed voice.
so that would be a regional planning body that includes the metropolitan with the rural?
No, an RPO is for a more rural area than an MPO. As I said, there are rural areas that can't amass enough people. To draw a net wide enough to have an MPO, it no longer becomes a cohesive unit. So then in that case, an RPO might be a choice. There's a way to get the planning involved, and planning is everything. Good development does not happen just by accident. It's a purposeful thing.
So you don't think that a regional planning organization would work because it would lack cohesion?
Well, an MPO is a regional because it takes the city and then maybe other cities and other populations into it. An RPO's difference is that it's a less dense population base that can't muster enough to be qualified as an MPO. But we have to think regionally. In Meridian, we have to think about Alabama as well as those of us in Mississippi. We'd be very foolish, and right now we are prevented from doing that because our planning has to be within the state, and yet 60% of my sales tax sales come from people who don't live in my state. So my plan needs to be regional across state boundaries. And we need the freedom to do that. Yes, sir.
We have several corridors in the area that need to be retrofitted, like Brook Street and Russell Street. I'm just curious, in your experience as a mayor or elsewhere, how it has been working with the federal government on,
There's a shift.
Federal money for projects like this and what it means for local planning.
There has been a shift in Washington at the federal level. I know in the past, as mayor, I've run up against, here are regulations, and those regulations are more rigid than the Ten Commandments. These are thou shalts, and there is no wiggle room, there is no discussion. There's a change federally. Whether it's FDA or Federal Highway or Federal Railroad Administration, they want the right choice for that particular problem or solution. And they are willing to work with you to adjust and amend and look for exceptions within the rules to make sense at your level. We had a street that we were trying to address, and of course congestion is relative. In Meridian, if you pull up to a traffic light and you don't make it through that light, you have to wait for the next cycle of the light. Well, that's gridlock. But if it's, if that's perception, then I have to deal with it. And we looked at, we were told, well, what you got to do is got to be this wide and all this other stuff. And it came down to it, we were able to work a better solution on that street, but on some side streets to take some of the traffic and really come up with a better solution all the way around. So there you have a federal DOT that will work with you. Now, they will listen to you, you may go talk to them, and they may say, you know what you're talking about doesn't work. Well, that's okay, at least they're talking to you. And they will talk at the local level. I mean, you can get them right here in Missoula from the FHWA or DOT to sit down with you and help you wrestle some, issue or want or desire or hope. And they're all for an imaginative solution. Don't think that it sounds, because it's not on the printed page, they won't let you do it. That's what the whole Tiger Grant program is about, is new ways of solving problems in transportation. So you've got good folks there, and they'll come and meet with you. Yes, sir.
I'm a state student at the university, and going to get home is extremely expensive. And if we do have an Amtrak system connecting all the cities in southern Montana, that would be phenomenal. But in order for me to get home, I have to either fly or drive. So it's cheaper for me to get to a larger city from a larger airport to fly into Denver. But if you don't, how would I go about with the Amtrak system just in the southern cities of Montana? How would I get to a larger city like Chicago or Seattle to fly down to Denver?
Where are you trying to get to?
Boulder, Colorado.
Okay.
My question is essentially if we're just talking about connecting the cities of southern Montana, how am I going to be able to find a way to get home?
Yeah, that's not what you do. The plans they're looking at to connect Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, because they're part of that bigger system. And I don't know what it goes down to.
That was my question. Is, are we just talking southern Montana?
No. Because, see, you don't have enough political clout just in southern Montana, because that gets you two senators. So,
Right.
But now you get Wyoming, you get Idaho, you get the cruise. Then you start talking to your friends in Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, who want the Sunset Limited started back. And you talk to your friends in Maine and Vermont who want further service. And you talk to your folks in Tennessee who desperately want to get from Chattanooga to Atlanta. All of a sudden you start getting together and those senators make a big difference. So, no, I'm not talking about just, if it was just within the borders of Montana, then you could argue that in Montana ought to pay for it. But it doesn't. It should extend into other states because, again, it would be part of that system. You probably have a car here that you don't use until you go home. Now, I don't know why you would use it here, because you've got a transit system within the university and back into the downtown. I would guess most of the stuff you want to do is downtown. It looks pretty accessible even, I've walked all over the place and passed all the roads. But you got to have your car to get back home. And if you had a train, I think you would be on that train. It'd be much safer for you, and especially in winter months. And I've been on the Empire Building during the winter, pulling into a Whitefish on time. I've never seen winter like I saw there. And I wonder how you get out of Whitefish absent that train in some way. My guess is you don't.
We have local people here who work very hard to try to get the West District restored in the northwest. And our governor and our senators are saying there's no money. That's the straight again.
And, what I think you will see is in the development of rail and high-speed rail in this country, they talk about 8 million conventional rail ought to be a part of that as well. You don't need a train that goes 200 miles an hour in Montana. I don't need it in Mississippi. I do need a train that equals automobiles. They all go 70 miles an hour. Average. And if it did, I wouldn't be in my car because, driving down the interstate, dodging the 18-wheelers is not as much fun as it was when I was 25. On the train, I can work the whole time I'm on the train if I want to. Or I can have a conversation. Or I can actually have a pretty civilized trip. And there's no such definition as railroad rage. You don't feel that way, right? So, yes, it can be afforded. This new authorization bill is a way to get some of that language in there. As we talk about investing in high-speed rail, we ought to talk about some investment in conventional rail. You know, 100 years ago, you lived a seamless life here. You lived in a neighborhood that was multiple uses. You had a corner grocery store, you had a little corner cleaners, you may have a corner bar, for that matter. You walk out your front door and you got on a streetcar. And the streetcar took you wherever you wanted to go in the city and took you down to your station if you got on a train. When you got on the train, you could ultimately travel anywhere in the United States. We have lost that connectivity. And when you fly, you've got to fly out of Montana or somewhere to fly back into another city. Yes, ma'am.
I agree, the rail is what we really need, but also, I would like to, go visit my son in Helena, 110 miles away without driving. And I can bike, and that'll take me 2 days. And I checked into the bus, and it was, I forget, close to 8 hours, maybe 6. You had to wait to have a layover in Butte.
I took that trip last month.
Yeah, well, my question is, I assume.
feel your pain.
I haven't done that yet. I assume that, the reason we don't have better bus service is that nobody can make a profit at it. So 2 parts. One, is part of our job to convince people to try alternative transportation, and/or for the bus system, is there any federal supplement for them?
No, but that's what we would like to see. That was a point I made about essential service, intercity bus. I think the federal government ought to be able to talk to private providers in Montana and say, the people of Montana need to be connected between these points, whatever they are. And we will actually pay you the shortfall between what it costs to run it and what you get out of the fare box if you will meet this market demand. And if the ridership is such that it pays for itself, then you don't get the federal fees. And we do that with passenger rail. Virginia just instituted new service from Washington to Lynchburg, I think. And it was proposed to be a pretty good subsidy from the state of Virginia. First year in operation, which is this year, the ridership has been multiples of what they thought it would be, so much that the state is going to have to pay that supplement for the ridership. Now, locally, you need to market, if you ever get a train or an intercity bus, those communities served need to enter into an agreement to market that service, to encourage and make sure the students know they can get on that train, to work with Amtrak to get the fare down so that it's affordable, to make sure it runs at the time that people want to get on the train. It comes through at 2 o'clock in the morning. What about other time? So you work with those issues, and Amtrak will work with you on those. But congressional law says they can't start any new service unless it pays for itself, which means the states or somebody else pay operation. When the infrastructure costs, you ought to be able to get out of the new authorization bill. Yes, ma'am.
Does this legislation address electricity roads coming in, that have to be rebuilt inside the communities in such a way that they would be like highways that are bypassing?
Well, there are, if a city street is part of the state or national highway system, and a lot of streets are within the city, they're just part of a U.S. highway, then there's federal transportation dollars that come to the state and legitimately be spent on those. The mayor can't just tap into federal funds to do the work on just a regular street in Missoula.
Talking about the I-1 highway coming through the neighborhood. Does this legislation need to address that?
Well, those are decisions that are ultimately made at the state or the local level. you do have, federal officials that want to work with you for the best solution, whatever that may be. But those decisions are made at the state and the federal, the state and the local level. I guess the good news is this group of feds aren't the kind that are going to try to dictate to you what you must do. There are certain parameters, but they're willing to work with you on adjusting them to some degree. I understand you have an issue on the street right here, and I know I really can't comment on it because I don't know. I don't have the depth of understanding or knowledge about it. And really, I've got to remain of what we're trying to do at a national level. But you got folks in Washington to listen to all of you in your opinion. Yes, ma'am.
You made a little while ago about how we had that competition at one point in Boston. Why did we lose it?
It was driven by federal policy. It was not driven by free market. After World War II, and there's a great book called Prayer for the City. You can read and you learn this the way I did. After World War II, returning GIs, federally, it was decided that loans for GIs to build or buy homes would be cheaper outside of cities than inside of cities. And so we put GIs in homes outside of cities. They needed to buy an automobile. The automobile was how they got back into the city to work and do everything and other things. And it was a matter of federal policy to create this sprawl and abandon the inner city. The city, we already have streets, sidewalks, water, sewer, lighting right here inside of cities. It's more fiscally responsible, and I would argue as a conservative, a wiser investment to invest where you already got the infrastructure. Rather than go out in some green pasture and build the same thing all over again. If you'll notice what's happening at malls around the country, they're taking the roof off, they're putting streets in between, they're making them downtown. We ought to be investing like that, I think, where you've already paid for the street and the water and sewer and stuff, leave it behind. New subdivisions will be built somewhere, and then they say, now, city, you've got to run water and sewer, you've got to service with a fire department or a police department. The revenue from the property tax isn't going to be enough to support that, so it's a losing proposition. We gave developers incentives to build inside the city on vacant or abandoned properties where we already paid for all of them.
I just moved out to Montana from the southeast, so Virginia. So I come here with a little Cincinnati about it, but going back to what you just said about that, we have this infrastructure, and just as the regional infrastructure in the western part of the United States and the Midwest is more set up for commerce and coal trains than it is for tourism. And just in the Northeast, it's for getting to work between Boston and Philadelphia. In the Southeast, it's for getting out when the storm comes. Is there a happy medium between, what there can be and what there is right now, shifting from the original intent of these transportation systems that are currently in place to what could be done? I mean, is there, the rail system out here is designed for freight, and can that be transitioned to passengers easily? This is, highway systems in the southeast are meant for getting people out, and freight in the northeast is really not too existent.
Well, the freight track in the Northeast is very needed. It runs over Amtrak's Northeast Corridor. And Amtrak dispatches every train, freight passenger rail, all up and down the Northeast Corridor. And it is, a seller runs on what had been freight right of way. So yes, you can have passenger rail within freight right of way, you can run a healthy, viable freight system as well. And we did that again 100 years ago. So we can do that. Certainly, there's a middle ground between where we are and what is perfect. And we won't get perfect, but we can do a lot better than where we are today. And in the South, it's interesting, you mentioned getting out of the way of storms. You know, Louisiana, the people in New Orleans are no safer with an approaching storm than they were before Katrina. 70% of the people that live in New Orleans are not on a private automobile. They have wonderful cross-city transportation, great trolley system, bus system works like a charm. They don't have anything that takes them out of the city. That's why you saw them walking up the interstate ramps. Because they didn't have to go all the way down out of the city, and here comes the storm. They still don't have it. So you don't just build a system to get them out of the storm, but what's happened is the population, a large part, has moved to Baton Rouge. So the connection between New Orleans and Baton Rouge is very important. It's gridlock on the highway. Passenger rail can alleviate the tunnel.
They couldn't get across the lake.
Well, they sure couldn't after Katrina, the bridge was gone.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there's a choke point. If they all had cars, we would have a parking lot trying to get out of New Orleans. We offered New Orleans, by the way, the 4 trains that Amtrak had there as evacuation before the storm, and they told us they were fine. They didn't need them, they'd be okay. After the storm, we worked a route coming in from Baton Rouge to bring 3 passenger trains a day. That's 2,400 people a day we could carry out in New Orleans to evacuate. All they need to do is get the people to the train in the outline yard, and we'd get them out. We rolled the first train with 800 empty seats and got 23 people on it. That was it. And then the mayor's office called us and said, that was too much trouble, we'd rather keep them in the supermarket. So sometimes local elected leadership can cause the loss of life. Yes, sir.
Well, my question was about Amtrak, and before Amtrak, we haven't talked about, we talked about 100 years ago. Before Amtrak was formed, we had a lot of those, which everywhere, my understanding, Northern Pacific Railway, that land grants and all kinds of other things, and they said, oh yes, we will continue passenger service, even though we don't make any money on it. That only the benefits the government has provided to us back in the 1800s. What happened to that?
Well, they took the land they were given and they created separate holding companies.
I know that part. What happened? What happened to the commitment, and why did the Northern Pacific get out of the hook, so to speak?
Well, I'll tell you what I told my chief administrative officer, who was a retired Navy captain, and came to work for me. He's accustomed to people saluting and saying, "Hi, sir," and carrying out the order of the day. And I told him, Ken, people will look you in the eye and they will lie to you. And he had never experienced that. Folks will take our land and promise to run passenger trains, and then they will stop. They came back to Congress and said, you know, we can't make any money over it, we're hemorrhaging already, we'll give you passenger rail. And Congress took it. And then on top of that, Amtrak has to indemnify the freight railroads. If you go out to a crossing and the crossing bars are broken and the tripping mechanism doesn't work and you go on the track and Amtrak hits you, Amtrak pays, not the freight railroad who controls the crossing bar. So we have to pay millions of dollars out of Amtrak because of something the freight railroad didn't do that produced an issue. But that's the way the law is written, and that's what we have to operate under for now. You do have a good freight railroad through, whether you realize it or not, through Montana. The NSF is a good freight railroad. They were great to work with at Amtrak. Really ran our trains more on time than most did. Norfolk Southern, another great freight railroad to work with. So there are freight railroads that get it. CSX has developed a whole passenger rail position, which is positive on the southeast coast, because they see that the federal government's getting ready to spend a bunch of money inside a freight waterway, and they like that. And And I think $7 billion of that 850 is being spent in BNSF right away. Well, that, what makes the passenger train move faster is going to make the freight train move faster. I mean, you get good signalization, you get good passing signs, you get all that, and the freight railroad will say, wait a minute, folks, that's not so bad. No, I'll take some of that. So I think you have an opening to work with those freight railroads. Did I answer your question?
Well, I kind of think that our people back in Washington bought into that. They're like, we'll give you the passenger rail. That's like giving somebody a dead horse. I mean, why did they, I still don't understand that.
Well, because we were all driven by automobile. And automobile industries, and the labor unions working in automobile industries, doing a huge work of time. In the oil industry, it's doing a huge work of time. And we were all supposed to drive forever. Now, unfortunately, of course, that was when we controlled all the oil fields in Saudi Arabia. What's happened is countries have taken over their oil supplies again, and they've changed the balance of this economic power.
The law that you're talking about, though, which we count, you cannot institute a rail service unless it's paid. This is a bad law. How does your organization do something about it? You know that law?
Well, what we're talking about with the transportation authorization is that passenger rail should be one of those options that states and localities can choose, and it ought to be one of the things you can elect to take some of your money and federal money to implement and pay for. And part of our position is we believe there should be more high-speed rail and conventional rail paid for by the federal government across this country. And you heard the president say that these cars I showed you in red are just the beginning, that at some point the country will be reconnected by rail. I don't think they'll all be high-speed rail in my life. But as I said, conventional rail should be a part of it. So yes, we're taking a position, very much pro-position in favor of all passenger rail development and investment in freight rail in short lines especially. The short lines don't get played in this, and we don't think that's right. Yes, sir.
Current thinking in Washington seems to be that money will only come if the states put up part of it. I don't see that working very well along this train travel agreement in the states. I want to go over that hurdle because if Montana has to pay 20% of the capital cost, I can guarantee that the citizen of Montana.
And the difference is the definition of a long distance train. Mississippi doesn't pay anything on the operation of infrastructure for Preston, which runs from New York to New Orleans. Virginia does pay part of operational costs from Washington to Lynchburg. That's considered a regional train. The northeast part of the states on the northeast don't pay anything for the Missoula service, because that's considered a long distance high-speed train. So it depends on the length of the train and what defines a long distance train from a train that's not long distance is an arbitrarily chosen number. And it's a very odd number. I don't even quote the number, but it's down to something in 43 miles. And they did it because it was a clean break from state-supported trains or non-state-supported trains. So how you reestablish that service could be long distance or it could be regional. Now, Virginia didn't have to pay part of the infrastructure cost. They had to pay part of the operational cost. And I think states might look attractively at paying part of the operational cost spread over 4 or 5 states. So it's just not that big a ticket item. Again, especially if you work market trade, you get ridership. No, the infrastructure cost needs to come from a federal share invested in freight rail system. If we are only running from Meridian through Jackson and Vicksburg, and it never leaves Mississippi, then it's, in Montana, you could say, well, now Mississippi, now you ought to pay for that. And that, I understand.
So make your car much longer, the more states you connect, the better it is for you.
Yeah, I agree with everything you say, what my point is, as long as the thinking is we have to get it, part of the capital cost, state by state. It's going to be impossible to get half of the state, or to the train piece across all the states.
Well, you're right. It's hard to get agreement within a state, much less try to cobble together 6 legislatures and 6 governors. Good grief. So from the standpoint of capital investment, that probably ought to be carried in a federal way. And then operational, that's another story. You know that.
So we probably have time for one more question. Well, everybody, let's thank Mayor